Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the last harvest of tomatoes at the end of the season. In our cold climate and short growing season, we usually have to harvest green tomatoes at the end of the season, so they're not ripe yet. These plants are loaded with tomatoes. They're all green. And we're actually past our first frost day now. So tonight the temperature is dropping to 4 degrees Celsius, so it's cold but not freezing. And according to the forecast, this is kind of how it's going to be for the next 2 weeks. So what we're doing today is harvesting all the tomatoes that are ready to turn color or are really nice big tomatoes that just haven't ripened yet. There are 2 reasons why we harvest these tomatoes today. The first reason is that we want the tomatoes to be as healthy as possible. Any blemishes will reduce the storage life of the tomato, so we want to harvest them before they get any frost or damage on them. This way they will ripen nicely after. The second reason is that the green tomatoes that are big and almost turning color are growing right next to those that are still small. By taking away the bigger, more ripe tomatoes, it signals to the plant that it needs to hurry up and make more tomatoes, and hopefully grow and ripen the small tomatoes faster. If the frost does happen tonight, which is completely possible where we live, the leftover tomatoes on the plants will still be edible after the frost, to use in salsa, for example, but they will probably not store as well. That's why it's important to harvest the tomatoes before the frost. Another way to encourage the tomato plants to produce more and to ripen quicker is by pruning off the growing points of the plant to discourage new growing points and blooming from happening. Some people do this step much earlier in the season, and you can if you want to, but we usually don't bother. After harvesting some of the green tomatoes before the frost, you can also cover the plants to protect them. This is only worth it if there is better weather coming and you want to keep your plants for a little longer. We store the tomatoes in boxes by laying them down in a single layer so that at any given time you can have an overview of all the tomatoes. Some people suggest wrapping the tomatoes in newspapers, but we never do that and wouldn't recommend it because then you can't see what the tomatoes look like in the newspapers. They store really well this way, and we usually store the boxes in the basement where it's cool and not as bright. We usually have tomatoes until the end of the year. That's how well they store. They ripen one after another. Usually boxes are full of tomatoes all at different stages of ripening. There's one tomato here, as you can see, that is damaged. We will try to ripen and store it anyway, but placing the tomatoes so that the damaged part is facing up makes it easier to keep an eye on it. You can store the tomatoes at room temperature. Warmer temperature will speed up the process and cooler temperatures will slow it down a little. If you want to speed up the process even more, you can also place an apple among the tomatoes. Apples help ripen anything faster. Keep an eye on the tomatoes. Check on them every few days if you can, because there just might be one that has gone bad. Since they're stored in a single layer though, it's easy to just take out the bad tomato and the other ones are still okay. Let us know your experiences with after ripening tomatoes in the comments below, and check out our blog post at northernhomestead.com to read more. Happy harvesting!